Hello, people of the internet. Fathead Dave here from the Ticket Bitcoin community. It's taken me forever to try and find some form of software to overlay my image/video in the bottom hand corner whilst we look at Murad's latest video surrounding his thought and thesis on the Memecoin supercycle, which he hasn't actually called it supercycle in some time, so I don't know whether that has changed. But currently, the Memecoin landscape, it's currently 10 to 10 here in the UK, and I've got to be up quite early. So I'll try and whiz through this video, but I just wanted to share my thoughts, and people have been making quite bold statements, I suppose, about Murad's thesis and current coverage of the Memecoin space. So I'm currently using StreamYard to do this. So any issues, please do let me know. And if this doesn't go to plan and I have to go to bed early, apologies, I'll try and cover this another day. I'm literally just going to go through the video at 1.5, maybe 2 times speed, so we don't have to listen to the whole thing, and break up and talk about my own opinion in certain aspects, because we are all have our own rights to share our thoughts and opinions. And just like Murad, I am sat here in my Ticket Bitcoin merch. I've got my Sproto hoodie on. I've got my Ticket Bitcoin cap representing as well. So let's get stuck into this. Any problems, I will try and monitor my Twitter. Let me make sure I've got that set up in the background on my phone. So bear with me. I probably should have recorded this, but I just thought if I do this now, then at least it's live by the time I go to bed. Can I find myself on X? Maybe, I don't know. Let me try and get the Telegram group up dead quick, and see if this comes up. I'm live streaming on X, I think. Apparently there's 13 people watching me. I honestly don't know what that means, and I don't know how you guys can see me, but you can. So let's get stuck into this. Hopefully you can still hear me and see me in the bottom corner. So let's go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to look at the past, present, and future of the crypto markets in order to answer the following question. How to find a liquid 100x plus investment in crypto, specifically in size and with high probability. This presentation will focus on micro, not macro. What does micro mean in this context? That means we're going to be specifically discussing asset selection. We're not going to be talking about cycle timing, central banking activity, or the state of the global economy. We're specifically going to talk about coin picking. We are going to be focused on the relatively established assets, as we don't want to gamble. We want to be relatively systematic and logical with our investments. Nothing presented here is financial advice and is purely an expression of my personal opinion. So first of all, what have been some of the parabolic 50x plus, 100x plus moves in crypto history? We had the famous BTC run towards the end of 2013. We had the famous BTC run towards the end of 2017. We had a very famous Ethereum parabola, which finished in January 2018. You know, Dash and Tron in 2017 did great. XRP from 2016 to 2018 did amazing. You had the Link run up between 2018 and 2021. You had the famous Sol close to 100x, I believe, in 2021. You know, AVAX 100x in 2021, Phantom almost 2000x last cycle. Doge was a incredibly popular parabola in 2021. SHIB did incredibly well towards the end of 2021, and so on and so forth, right? So what are we trying to do here? What we're trying to do here is to answer the following question. What are some of the things that these parabolas have had in common, right? What are some of the factors that they share that we can hypothesize contributed greatly towards their not only parabolic, but also a very rapid rise? We're going to be discussing 17 factors that are driving parabolic crypto asset growth. So first things first. And personally, I consider this to be by far the most important factor. It is having a cult-like community. Crypto cults resemble emerging internet mini religions, which frankly, in my opinion, is the
I also, hopefully you can see this. I also refer to it as being more so aligned to football teams as well. Football teams have no inherent value given to that individual, or you are usually associated in where an individual is born, and then how do you attract a individual who isn't from that local area or supports a team that is outside of their country or nation? I would argue that that is probably derived from the ethos, the way that they play, or maybe a certain player as well that will draw attention to that. So a analogy that I like to use for a lot of people is not necessarily cultish means across other facets, but I use football teams as a good use case for that as well.
Is the single most bullish factor that not just a crypto token, but really any financial instrument.
I also just don't think it's a religion at all.
Instrument can have. Achieving a cult status provides a number of beneficial and powerful dynamics to the coin. People make the coin their whole identity. Essentially, the goal is to build an army that takes over the internet. People are unlikely to dabble and trade with other coins or even trade in general. The community becomes a second family for holders. You get what we call free cult labor, which is essentially a fancy way of saying community members working for the coin for free or near free. You have high emotional resonation, you have high inspiration per capita, you have a high sense of meaning, and all of the above makes it much more likely for holders to not only diamond hand, but also evangelize. The collective's mission becomes more important than an individual's profit. You also get lower turnover, you get high stickiness, you get high loyalty. Essentially, people join and they don't leave. And ultimately, you get a high percentage of people that hodl the asset, which ultimately is the key to crypto success. What are some of the best examples from history?
I don't think anyone would disagree with what he's just said. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm going to try and speed and pull it a bit further. Sorry if it becomes a bit mousy in the background, but hey ho, I've got to fly through this.
For this particular factor. In my opinion, it is BTC, arguably the strongest cult in crypto history, if not in the history of finance. You have XRP, you have Link, which was kind of a crazy cult between 2018 and 2021. You have Doge, which was a very powerful community in the 2021 cycle. And you have GME, which was also a crazy, crazy powerful community in late 2020, early 2021. Factor 2, the coin should be new to the cycle. Historically, crypto assets that are new to the current cycle, essentially coins that were created in the last 2 to 3 years, they tend to outperform assets that have already existed in the past cycles.
Two caveats to that quite early on. I would argue Doge's cult-like mentality was probably driven even further by the fact that Elon Musk supported it and pushed it as a narrative, which you could argue is a parallel to the way that Murad works closely with SPX 6900. Would have Doge taken off as much as it did had Elon not involved himself? I would say probably not. And saying that the success of a project comes from it being relatively new, if we are comparing current affairs with the likes of Doge, is the fact that Doge has been around for many years and only found success in the last cycle. So I suppose that is a counter argument to what Murad has just said.
This kind of folk wisdom is popularized by the oft-quoted crypto adage, long the new coins, don't long the old coins. And the explanation behind the power of this factor is quite simple. You have more hope, you have fewer backholders from past cycles that can show up and sell on the way up. You have no resistances or quote-unquote supply zones at higher levels. There's no memory of high prices, and all the new highs are highs for the first time, which is fundamentally more exciting. And ultimately, this story, the story of a new coin, it hasn't been widely heard yet. It hasn't made its way through the earth, right?
I think if you're diving in deep into that as well, it's that if you are a new joiner to a given project and that project is relatively new, it will likely see some inorganic spikes at peaks and troughs. Are you then asking your new holders to immediately sell at the point in which that new peak high dissipates and they start to see a 40, 60, 70% drawdown? I don't know.
When you compare it to a crypto asset that has already been in the market for the past 10 years. What are some good examples of this? Ethereum in 2016, 2017, Tron in late 2017, Solana in late 2020, Axie in 2020, early 2021, SHIB in late 2020, etc. These coins were new to the cycle, and that certainly added to the power of their rise. Factor 3, the coin represents a new category in crypto. A new category is fundamentally more exciting. It activates new neurochemical pathways in the minds of investors. It is a fresh narrative. It does not feel derivative, like only a minor improvement over something that has already existed in the past. It feels disruptive, it feels innovative, and it can reach new demographics which previously were not a part of the crypto markets. I also believe it better lends itself to speculation, belief, and very high ceilings. And also, it's hard to, when you're representing a new category, it's hard to find comparables from past cycles.
I would argue that meme coins aren't a new category. I suppose that you could argue that off branches of meme coins, like the emergence of, I won't swear on this, but poo coins, which is arguably what we are parading around, pushing and chilling, which we love to do, and I think is really funny. Meme coins isn't a new concept, considering the fact that Doge is this holy grail of a meme coin. Because again, let's not forget that Dogecoin is a play on the fact that Bitcoin was supposed to be this super safe money narrative, and then someone decided to just put a dog's face on a coin and be like, "Oh, look, it's Dogecoin. Like, it can go up too because people like dogs." So meme coins aren't new. And if you're talking about derivative categories within meme coins, then you kind of go against your reasoning of it feels fresh and it's not a derivative, because technically we are building a derivative narrative within the narrative that is meme coins. And a meme coin at its base level should be a meme coin.
What are some good examples of this? Again, BTC, it effectively created the neo gold or the neo store of value category. Ethereum pioneered the smart contracts category. Synthetics was one of the earliest DeFi plays. Axie Infinity was last cycle the unquestioned GameFi leader. And Helium, aka HNT, was kind of the main play of the decentralized physical infrastructure narrative. Factor 4, the coin is the category leader.
Just as an FYI, HNT was absolute trash.
Crypto markets are notoriously winner take most due to network effects. And most investors, naturally at the behavioral economics level, they want to pile into the winner. They want to pile into the category leader. Winners keep winning. Outperformers continue to outperform. As people jokingly say, betas long betas, alphas long the leader. Beta assets or catch-up assets, they simply do not have this special sauce that causes the leader to outperform in the first place. If you have been following the extreme asset dispersion this cycle, I believe this has become even more pronounced this cycle compared to 2021. In 2021, a lot more coins were outperforming BTC. In the past 2 and 3 years, fewer and fewer assets outperform BTC every year. And some good examples of this, again, BTC, unquestionable category leader in the store of value category. Ethereum, to this day, is the kind of the winner take most category leader of the smart contracts race. Dogecoin last cycle was the unquestioned leader of the meme coin narrative. You know, again, Axie Infinity was the leader and the biggest coin of the GameFi narrative. And Decentraland, aka Mana, was the leader of the metaverse, quote unquote, metaverse narrative. Factor 5. I've always said this, and I've talked about this many times before. Parabolas are more likely to happen in assets that are difficult to value. Now, what do I mean by this? And often, by the way, often this goes hand in hand with kind of the previous factor we discussed, which is being a new category. Traditional equities, or even assets that have revenues or dividends, they have established valuation methodologies and valuation metrics, price to earnings, EV to EBITDA, price to sales, EV to sales. You know, you have DCF, FCF, NPV, etc. Right? And oftentimes, the best performing crypto assets, particularly in the case of new and emerging crypto categories, they have no established frameworks by which to value them, right? And I have always considered this a big advantage. Why? Because in late capitalism, no revenue actually gives you more optionality. This is also a big reason why, contrary to most crypto investors, I strongly prefer crypto assets that do not produce or even aim to produce any revenue. In late capitalism, no revenue gives you more optionality. Value comes in many forms, not just dividends or revenues, and intangible value that is difficult to value using traditional methodologies resists kind of traditional valuation attempts. Once again, parabolas are more likely to occur in assets that are weird, new, and misunderstood.
Yeah, I mean, we should not at this point be comparing our meme coins to any business that trades and has employees who go to work who then have to get paid by the fact that the business has a turnover and has profits to meet because it is a publicly traded company. Yeah, I think with it being, where is it? No, value comes from many forms. Murad mentioned a point that like it doesn't have a value placed on it yet. And again, arguably, you could say that all these new projects that come out fly extremely high because they're new and they're different and they have a fresh narrative. It's likely because the liquidity is low and people, aka whales, who have more money than we do, or the vast majority of us do, just want to make more money. So we'll drive a narrative into a project. I appreciate that's not what Murad is talking about right now, and I appreciate that Murad does not push that narrative. So that's not me talking about him inherently. That's just how we need to ensure that we're not just basing a meme coin success on its underlying financial setup, I suppose.
Understood. What are some good examples of this? Early BTC. No one knew how to value this. Do we value this as a payment network? Do we value this as a gold replacer? Do we value this as something else entirely? And I believe this was an inherent advantage. Frankly, still is an inherent advantage, which contributes towards BTC rising faster and accepting a lot of speculative flows, many of which ultimately become holders, investors, and believers. Ethereum. Nobody knew how to value smart contracts early on. Is it going to be silver to BTC? Is it going to be the world computer? Is it going to be programmable oil, etc.? To this day, people debate how to value properly. Dogecoin in 2021, with massive social media presence, do we value it as another kind of cryptocurrency number 5? Do we value it as an online digital cult? Do we value it as a movement that is kind of making fun of the seriousness of the crypto space? I believe that played towards an advantage.
I can't dive that deep, and maybe this is why I'm not as talented or wealthy as Murad. But again, from an outsider looking in, Doge was kind of my first entry to the cycle. It was me jumping on the back of the fact that I know that Elon knows how to make money. I'd invested in Tesla, that had made me money, and I saw him getting onto Dogecoin. And because it was easy for me to accumulate a larger share of that market cap, obviously not close to any percentage, but my share of market cap of Doge is far superior than my share of market cap of BTC. So I know that my returns, if this pump and narrative continues, I am likely to make more money.
XRP, do we value it as a currency? Do we value it as a payment system, as a Swift replacer? Nobody knows.
Speculation, XRP's value comes from.
And that ambivalence played to its advantage. And GME as well. In 2020, 2021, Pretty sure people knew that its rise wasn't solely attributed to GME's revenues, but rather to the giant collective of supporters online that essentially all simply agreed to Diamond Hand and to invest and to believe for as long as they can. Factor number.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like GME's value, the price that it got to was not the value of it as a company. And I'm pretty sure everyone's confident and understands the narrative behind this. It was kind of this push around the post-COVID time in which normal people wanted to fight back against the system because the system was making more money and these bankers and these institutions were absolutely draining us of money, to prove that we could actually fight against that. And Jimmy, I think his name was, again, decided to pick GME because I think he liked it. And yeah, to the same extent that I suppose meme coins have, they just said, let's buy it consistently, let's liquidate all these shorts, and let's see how high it can go. Long term, has it played out? I don't think it has.
6. People often ask me, how do you build a loyal community? And I tell them, you make poor people rich. That's it. That's the most important factor. More precisely, you have to kind of look for the following situation. Is the coin already making a significant number of retail participants so far this cycle wealthier? In my opinion, the key to build a powerful retail community is to make lower middle class, and upper middle class people 10x richer. And many of these people will become full-time evangelists for the coin. This is how you build virality. This is how you build a strong foundation. Bonus points, in my opinion, if the coin makes people richer gradually rather than all at once. Because when you kind of all come together on a journey, on an adventure, you develop lore, you develop inside jokes, memes, you develop battle scars that you are not only proud of, but also you remember fondly later on. And it's just much more exciting to do this slowly, steadily, and gradually, rather than all kind of in a single second. In my opinion, in general, with few exceptions, ultra wealthy people are useful, but are often more cynical and less loyal to a cause, as they have a more diversified array of fun things going on in their life. They don't need to spiritually go all in into a single community. This is why I believe on the retail side, it's the lower middle class, upper middle class participants that actually represent the greatest source of value. I believe this is the ultimate use case of crypto and blockchain technology. To combine technology, memetics, social media.
I mean, again, Murad is an extremely intelligent person and far more intelligent than I am, but I'm just sharing my 2 cents. Having a fundamental baseline for what makes a meme coin successful is that it makes poor people rich is inherently insane. Yeah. I think you're underplaying your intelligence here, Murad, and I just don't think that comes across very well. It doesn't come across very well to maybe people who spent more time in crypto. It might come across really well to fresh eyes, and arguably, again, that's why we are creating this, or you have created this slideshow. I suppose, and I do understand that, yeah, a greater return is what is of interest to middle class to lower upper class, I suppose. And that's probably why I didn't heavily invest in BTC, because again, my perception of my share of that growth was lower versus me putting £10,000 into something that had the potential of, to your point, a 10x, 100x. And by potential, I mean, theoretically, there is a chance if enough people buy it. Whereas if I had actually stuck with BTC and invested that 10K, and again, yeah, had a fixed sum of money that I put in weekly, I would, holding my hands up, be better off right now than I currently am. So again, it is still a gamble. There is no certainty behind this. I appreciate your point is that we are here to create that certainty, but it's quite easy to just write 1,000%, 10,000% on a page and be like, if you hold and buy, this is the outcome. Bonus points if the coin makes them richer gradually on a journey. Arguably, again, and this is what I totally understand about meme coins. Meme coins are community driven, and that's why I find altcoins becoming more obsolete over time. I don't find the use case personally in an investment strategy of an altcoin. BTC, Ethereum, even maybe, like Ethereum is massively underperformed this cycle. And then where you have some money to play with, where you can lose it all and not be affected, but if you win big. Yeah, be with a meme coin community and base that around what your personality traits are. I wouldn't base it around its financial structure or its the fact if it could possibly make you rich, because before you also talked about that meme coins shouldn't be built on the fact that it has a financial certainty tied to it. You are producing content, you are engaging with your community with the understanding that this could all go to zero. So yes, BTC, heavily invest in. Stocks and shares, you could still argue S&P 500 as a family, as a young adult. If you start work at 16 and start paying into that on a daily, weekly basis, even a small amount, by the time that you're 50, 60, I know that doesn't sound very sexy, but you put yourself in a very financially secure position versus had you not done that. However, with 5% of your net value, find a meme coin community you'd like to be a part of, commit to it, create content, be involved in that community. And the possibility is that off the back of the success of the crypto cycle, aka BTC going up, aka Ethereum going up, or the native chain that you are currently on, that coin could go up.
And a financial asset in order to create social Schelling points, which redistribute a slice of global wealth to early adopters and believers. The other way to think of it is, in my opinion, the purpose of crypto is to essentially bring forward selective UBI. What are some great examples of this? Bitcoin made a lot of its early Bitcoin talk supporters very wealthy, and a lot of them to this day are lifelong supporters and evangelists of BTC. XRP, I believe the reason it pumped once again in 2024 is because the people that invested in 2016, 2017, they to this day are sitting on large unrealized profits, and in their mind is going to go much higher. They continue to stay loyal throughout all these years. Dogecoin, a lot of their early supporters were already wealthy by the time late 2020 came about. So during the 2020-2021 parabola, Dogecoin became their full-time thing. GME made a lot of early participants wealthy, and they just became full-time supporters as the parabola was happening. And Hype, the cycle, is a good example. It made a lot of the early users very wealthy. And I believe that 30 to 40% of Hype's valuation is driven by this intense community loyalty, even to this day. Number 7, the coin which lends itself to extensive social media posts, photos, and videos is going to be at a great advantage. I'm going to do another video on this later, but my theory is that the further we go into late fiat capitalism and money printing in general, the less fundamentals will matter, and the more sustained attention and collective spiritual belief will matter. My theory is that traditional style fundamentals will return back to being in vogue post-hyper-Bitcoinization when we're actually operating in a deflationary economy, and that's when it will be time for you to wipe the dust off of your Benjamin Graham books. Financial assets right now, in my opinion, are becoming less about dividend-related fundamentals and more about memetics, and effectively acting as financialized vessels of dissatisfaction around which retail participants can coalesce, not only to make a statement, but also participate in new financialized movements. If my theory is correct, then, again, assets which are better suited to producing a variety of social media content are at a huge advantage.
Can I skip back there? Perfect. Yeah, I do think there has to be a differentiation. I think there also has to be a caution around the type of content that you create, and that the reasons and message that you portray is carefully done. Because also, I would argue that social media is the worst place to get any form of crypto-related content. But it is also the best, because we post absolute nonsense on X all day long, and some of us even post nonsense on Instagram and TikTok, but they are still arguably also the worst places to get any form of advice. If you correlate, I would argue, the amount of content posted regarding crypto, meme coins, altcoins, versus the amount of gains made per head, I can't imagine those numbers are favorable to the masses.
Then, again, assets which are better suited to producing a variety of social media content are at a huge advantage. Think about it. For example, for me, I'm not really that excited to pitch or show a DeFi infrastructure play or a governance token to somebody on the street or my family member. It's just boring, frankly, right? Their memetics are weak, they're not spicy, they're not youthful, they're not energizing, they're not dynamic, they're not crazy, they're not inspiring, right? I believe the market wants something crazier. What are some examples of this? Bitcoin early days, Chainlink, which completely took over 4chan and other platforms in 2019, 2020. Dogecoin, which was all over social media in 2020, 2021. Again, GameStop was all over Reddit, was all over other platforms. And SHIB.
I disagree with this. So I think the idea behind the meme coins culture is that you should be attractive to the masses, no matter what age, race, sexuality, interest, hobbies, whomever you are. And that's why, again, speaking from the Ticker Bitcoin community, having people who are so different focus on one single area, you don't really want to. You want to segment the fact that people understand the narrative, and hence the reason why I double down on Ticker Bitcoin is because the narrative of Ticker Bitcoin is you can create the most silly, obscene, ridiculous piece of content, but tie it back to the project because the project is to be silly. And with it being the schizophrenic project, which again, Murad, you've allowed us to be that project, is that it can allow your 9-to-5 40-year-old dad with 2 kids to have a laugh, maybe be a little bit edgy online, make some stupid content, and know that he's part of a bigger picture, as opposed to being like, oh, you're my dad, you're not going to have any interest in this, or you're my brother-in-law, you're a hedge fund manager. I used to personal train back in the day, so I spoke to a lot of people with varying interests and jobs and hobbies and ages, and they were talking about meme coins, and they were buying SHIB. And the reason they were buying SHIB is because if this gets to this, I become so rich. So admittedly, they weren't tied into the meme itself, but having retail managers and marketing executives buying a token that looks like that disproves the point that we shouldn't be shying away, or we should be shying away from anyone. That I would argue that we should be trying to draw in anyone and say, look, everyone can get involved. This is for everyone, and getting involved with the smallest financial value you can. Put in £100. Worst case scenario, you lose £100. Best case scenario, we 10x it, we 100x it. But on that way, we're going to have a really fun time. You can create the most silly content you want. You can put your own spin on that content, and you will be welcomed into that community.
Which took over several social media platforms in 2020, 2021 as well. Factor number 8, parabolic growth hasn't happened yet. In blunt terms, effectively, the asset is still unpumped. The 1 billion to 100 billion space has still not been explored. Essentially, you want to buy assets where the giant global scale parabola has not yet occurred. You want to be long altcoins that haven't experienced meteoric growth above tens of billions in the past. No backholders from past parabolas, and the first fresh parabola is always most exciting. You want to join communities that can go parabolic but still haven't. I believe
I don't know how to read that last point. You want to join communities that go parabolic in the first pre-parabolic phase, which is arguably every meme coin. If we're still talking about meme coins, because you did put altcoins here, so I'm a little bit confused. I'm entirely honest with you, Murad. Arguably any meme coin that completely bottoms upon creation has had some drastic issues. Usually, every meme coin flipping skyrockets, everyone jumps on the hype, everyone sells off, and it crashes. The long-term narrative of have you created a token that has some form of structure to it, good liquidity, locked liquidity, good holders, long-term narrative, high-quality work, high-quality art, consistent people who post an NFT project tied to it, good reach, recognizable characteristics. Because again, what I'm trying to get hold of is you want to be long altcoins that haven't experienced meteoric growth above tens of billions in the past. And again, this might not tie back to inherently meme coins only, but this then is a complete disparity from you want to be part of something that's not happened before and is brand new. And now you're saying that we want to be on something that's been in the crypto space for ages now, but hasn't gone above 10 billion or 100 billion. And this can then start to create an awkward point for people. If I was painting this picture for people coming in, based purely on my time in crypto, is spend 90% of your energy focusing on BTC. And it's like, well, it'll be fun coming from someone who really enjoys pushing Ticker Bitcoin. And again, with that additional 10%, segment yourself into a community that you feel that you can provide value to and resonate with. And I really have no issues of the fact that I've lost out money elsewhere. Well, I do. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to have had 200, 300,000, which I technically could have done based upon where I put my money at the start of this cycle. But I don't. And again, other projects like Giga, APU, SPX, 6900, and Ticker Bitcoin, I just didn't resonate with any of those projects. So it's easy in hindsight for me to look back and go like, oh man, I should have just put £1,000 in that. But at the time, I was like, I've got no interest. I don't understand it. It's not funny. I don't want to be involved in it. And that's like with anything. Whereas Ticker Bitcoin, I really used to enjoy watching silly content that was like console based. So I'd like to watch YouTube videos of silly content that was made on like old Xbox games or old PlayStation games. And I really like the retro, simple, very low quality memes and videos that have always been created, like the old Left 4 Dead mods back in the day, Team Fortress 2 mods back in the day. Really like Overwatch content that again has got that silly, stupid edge to it. Always loved playing the PlayStation, Crash Bandicoot, all of these classics, Sonic, obviously, and then bringing that narrative into the space. And I saw that in Ticker Bitcoin, and that's why I got involved there.
this is the most lucrative and the highest probability strategy in crypto. Some examples of this, once again, Ethereum in 2016, early 2017, Chainlink in 2019, Solana in 2020, Dogecoin in 2020, you get the idea. Factor number 9, you want to focus on coins that are focused on a large total addressable market. Just like a VC analyzing a potential startup investment, you as a crypto asset investor want to focus on large total addressable market caps. Again, most utility coins have relatively small total addressable market caps. I don't need to teach you this, I'm sure you understand. And I also think deflationary nature of the AI future will further act as a headwind even to the revenue producing assets in crypto. Again, I believe that non-revenue producing coins have significantly bigger total addressable market caps in the context of our AI-driven future. Simply put, you want to focus on crypto assets that are going after large markets. Again, examples of this: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, BNB, Hype, and as of recently, privacy coins and early equity in stablecoin providers, if you could get your hands on that. Factor number 10. So it's very important, in my opinion, to have a narrative that appeals to retail. Why? Because rapid 50x, 100x type moves, they're not caused by giant institutions. They are caused by retail and to a lesser extent by smaller, agile, aggressive institutions. This means that for a 50x, 100x type repricing to occur, the core narrative of the asset needs to deeply appeal and emotionally resonate with retail investors. Why? The more emotional resonation triggered by an asset, the more loyalty, evangelism, free cult labor, and social media activity you will generate. You have to remember, retail participants outnumber institutional participants 1,000 to 1. And retail participants can win by leaning harder on social media. In fact, I think that's the only way for retail people to win. If you don't want to gamble, if you don't want to trade, your correct strategy is to unite together with other people, lean harder on social media to create countercultural mimetic movements. Again, what are some examples of this?
I'm just going to quickly go past that. Sorry, folks, if you're getting bored.
Is to unite together with other people.
I also think that not necessarily narratives, but things that definitely appeal to retail is mentally how much of that coin can you theoretically own. So I know for a fact that a project that is worth, even if the market cap is lower, if that project's token is worth $100 versus one that's worth 1/10 of a cent, even if the market cap of the 1/10 of a cent is 10 times larger, retail, aka people, will be more interested in something that has a lower denominator number because psychologically they can own a greater value of that given coin, and they can think, I've got 10 billion flipping SHIB here. But saying that I've got $50 is not sexy. And again, the anticipation of going from something that's worth 1/10 of a cent can easily be worth 1 cent. Like, what's 1 cent? That's nothing. That's a penny. Here it is. Versus something that's $100 simply going to $200. Even if that market cap differentiation is vast, I still think that that is something that mentally plays with a retail investor, is what's the denominator of that value, not its market cap. Obviously, we've already talked about narratives, but I think narratives inherently come from, are they actually interested in the people that are creating that project? And that calls back to, like, how do you pick which football team you support if you're not given, if you don't come from that given town? You generally find one that you either like the way they play, you like a certain player on their team, which obviously doesn't necessarily transfer over to meme coins. But if you're thinking about, okay, I support Liverpool because I'm from Liverpool, generally people in that area will be relatively similar in regards to their understandings, their ethos, their mindsets. People will still differentiate. But I think it's more so focused on that.
Lean harder on social media to create countercultural mimetic movements. Again, what are some examples of this? Early Bitcoin, XRP, Doge, GME, Axie Infinity. You get the idea. Factor 11, ambitious targets. Ambitious targets, in my opinion, are an incredibly important factor. You know, the higher the community target, the higher the eventual result. As they famously say, shoot for the stars, end up at the moon. The higher your ambition, the more hodling you're going to get, the more diamond handing you're going to get, the more the mission is long lasting, the more patience you're going to have in the community. And the community is going to instinctively understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that's ultimately how you get sustainable successes in crypto. Some examples of this, once again, BTC, trying to replace all money in the world. We know that's a 200 trillion. Examples of this, once again, BTC, patience you're going to have in the community. And the community is going to instinctively understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that's ultimately how you get sustainable successes in crypto. Some examples of this, once again, BTC, trying to replace all money in the world. We up at the moon. The higher movements. Again, what are some examples of this? Early Bitcoin, XRP, Doge, GME, Axie Infinity. You get the idea. Factor 11, ambitious targets. Ambitious targets, in my opinion, are an incredibly important factor. You know, the higher the community target, the higher the eventual result. As they famously say, shoot for the stars, end up at the moon. The higher your ambition, the more hodling.
I think that this is Murad's worst take. I just think this has got absolutely nothing to it. That being said, so Ticker Bitcoin was, we're going to flip BTC, which is funny because our ticker is Bitcoin, and that's funny. And trying to explain that to a person that, oh, the ticker is Bitcoin. Oh, but what, like Bitcoin? Yeah, but the ticker is like its symbol on these websites that you can buy it from. So when people type in Bitcoin, Harry Potter Bombs on 10 comes up. Ha ha, everyone laughs. And then, yeah, SPX 6900s is we're going to flip the stock market. And then we said we're going to flip the supermarket. And yeah, we made some funny memes. It was a good time. I just don't think this has got any relevance whatsoever, because at what point does that then become stupid and ridiculous? So SPX 6900 wants to flip the stock market, if you didn't already know that. And go for it, why not? But again, the thing that makes me laugh and gave me some comfort within Ticker Bitcoin, there was no financial narrative tied to the project. So when I first joined the Telegram, I had one of our devs, more like, much respect to that guy, telling me that in the next 10 minutes, we're going to go to $100. Now, theoretically, based upon these ambitious targets, Factor 11 on the Murad's list, that is bullish. Now, it is bullish, but it's bullish because it's so stupid that in the back of my head, I know it's not actually going to happen. That gives me a sense of security that we, as the people involved in this project, understand the realistic value of this project given time, given narrative, given the cycle's performance. But we can still have fun about that. So yeah, Ticker Bitcoin, Harry Potter Bombers on it. You know what? We've changed it. We're not just going to flip Bitcoin. I think we actually decided that we're going to be worth more than every possible product, item, manufacturing that could happen in the world. You know what? 70 gigillion. Okay? Ticker Bitcoin will be worth 70 gigillion. It's actually 30 billion. Oh, wait there. 30 billion a gagillion. I can't remember what it says. Yeah. I think this is Murad's worst take. I think this is just a narrative to support his narrative. I don't think this has any intrinsic value. That doesn't mean I'm right. I just think this is his worst take of the list. Higher ambitions equals more hodling. I would actually argue the flip side, that higher ambitions puts people, maybe people similar in my position, people with less money than the people who have more money, to think that, oh, if I keep hodling, we probably could hit this. So I'm likely to make more money. Whereas what it actually provides the whales with is greater liquidity and a later exit point if they need it, if that is the mindset of, okay, whatever the given project is, we're going to hit 75 trillion in value. And if we can really make people believe that, I would argue that it just provides a better position for people who have higher amounts of that given token to just eat up all the liquidity of the poor people who have less and then exit and leave people in a bad position.
You're going to get, the more diamond handing you're going to get, the more the mission is long lasting, the more patience you're going to have in the community, and the community is going to instinctively understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and that's ultimately how you get sustainable successes in crypto. Some examples of this, once again, BTC trying to replace all money in the world. We know that's a 200 trillion plus market. That's incredibly inspiring and huge. Ethereum, if it becomes a world computer, who knows how big that can get. XRP, they want to go to $469. That's an ambitious target, regardless of whether you think that's realistic or not. SHIB, famous Doge killer, that's what made it go to 50 billion plus, or one of the reasons, at least in my opinion. Hype want to house all of finance. Again, a very big market. Factor number 12, supply constriction. Supply constriction.
Dogecoin went up because Elon Musk posted about it. Simple.
Is bullish, simple as. It causes fewer coins to be in circulation in practice. It eliminates sell pressure after pumps. Ultimately requires less total buying for the coin to go up. And there are two ways to do it. You can do it the honest way, which is build a decentralized cult of diamond hands with very ambitious targets, or you can do it the dishonest way, which is a centralized team.
Yeah, supply constriction is bullish because that means the scarcity, and scarcity generally means that prices go up over time. For people who don't know, Bitcoin, aka BTC, has a fixed supply. There we go. A constricted supply of 21 million, which means that over time, the ability to get more becomes less, meaning that generally per Bitcoin value should go up over time as a narrative. On the flip to that, Ethereum has an infinite supply and works off like deflationary systems in which that to use that network, you have to pay a fee, which is a like ETH gas fee. And then that ETH, I believe I'm wrong, please do correct me, is then burned in the background. So then it almost creates a deflationary asset where theoretically there is a certain amount of ETH being produced, but then that is also being taken off the table at some point, which then allows the available demand that is out there to then generally over time, theoretically, as it should, go up in value. The two ways at the bottom, the honest way, I think, again, this paints a dangerous picture of saying, and this is coming from me, so I rode Dogecoin last cycle from 3 pence in English money, so maybe like what, 5.5 cents, let's call it 6 cents just for ease. I rode that up from 3 pence to its peak of what, 79 cents, so I think I went up to like 56 pence. Do you think I sold? Heck no. And why do you think that was? It's because people who had way more money than me were saying, oh, hold to $1, hold to 10, hold to 56, hold to 74. Elon's going to put it on Mars. Elon's going to put it on the moon. Elon's going to paint it on the side of his rocket. Elon's going to make a Doge phone. You can buy a Tesla with Doge. Doge is king. Doge is great. Doge was funny. Doge was a great meme. It was my first entry to the market. I rode it all the way back down to what, 9 pence. So technically I got 3x, but I could have got like what, a 20x. But stupid Fathead Dave thought, no, you know what? I'm going to diamond hand this bad boy, and I'm not going to take any profits. I would say that there's nothing wrong with taking any profits. Have I taken any from Ticker Bitcoin? No, I have not. Again, but I've got investments elsewhere, so that's absolutely fine. And the money that I have to play with in Ticker Bitcoin is my money to play with, and I can do whatever I want with it. And that means I keep investing it. That's great. I keep holding it, that's great, and I buy Proto Gremlins, and that's great as well. The dishonest way, centralized team controls 8% of supply. Admittedly, I don't know enough about that to make a comment, so I'm not going to make a comment.
Who directly or indirectly control 80% of the supply. If you know, you know. I really prefer not to speak. You get the idea. Some examples of this in history. Bitcoin, I believe they diamond handed in an honest way by creating the right culture. You had Tron in 2017, 2018, or frankly even to this day. XRP, SHIB, GME, etc. Right? Some of these did it through pure culture of diamond handing. Others did it through other means. But ultimately, supply constriction is a very bullish factor. Factor number 13. A coin develops a DCA culture. DCA culture creates a permanent bid on the asset. This is bullish as there's effectively a consistent mechanical keyword buying of the asset every day. This limits the downside and also builds a strong foundation for a parabolic move. Effectively, the holders consistently channel their blood, sweat, and tears, their money, their time, their energy into the asset. Some examples of this is the stock market. This is bullish as there's effectively a consistent mechanical keyword buying of the asset every day. This limits the downside and also builds a strong foundation for a parabolic move. Effectively,
yeah, I think this is an okay take. I admit I don't know where this DCA culture comes from. So DCA is dollar cost average. It has no fixed definition of that time frame. So DCA, dollar cost averaging, just means that if you DCA once a month, that is what your DCA scheduling would be, and then over a year you can then work out what your dollar cost average is. Then you can work out what your gains are on that given stock or crypto or whatever it is. If you do it daily, then you are likely to catch the trends more frequently, which means that you should be able to put yourself in a better position. I think it's better that I think it's positive that people dollar cost average into things, but it's not groundbreaking in my opinion, and it's not new in my opinion. And arguably, like, we've all been in these meme coins now theoretically for what, 3 years, 2 years, 2.5 years, let's call it 3 years worst case. If you bought on day 1, day 2, you'd probably held all the way through. Maybe you didn't DCA, but I'd be surprised if you hadn't bought more than just once. If you are a late comer, you've probably dumped in a lump sum and you're waiting to see what the market's doing. If you're like me and you've been around for over a year, I have DCA'd in at different price points so that I now know where I break even, I know where I lose money, I know where I make money. I would argue the only people really that are buying and holding without DCAing are people who have been in that project from early, who are then determining when they want to use you or me as exit liquidity at some point. If you're talking about DCAing culture, I also think that, posting regularly, being active in your community regularly, liking, commenting, and sharing on people who create posts regularly, that makes a huge difference as well.
the holders consistently channel their blood, sweat, and tears, their money, their time, their energy into the asset. Some examples of this is the stock market, Bitcoin, and gold, which all develop a robust DCAing or indexing cultures. Factor 14, one I think that's relatively underappreciated, is the community developing a tipping culture. I believe this is very underrated. I think it can massively turbocharge internal loyalty, atmosphere, and vibes in the community. It makes the community feel like a second family. It makes community members feel appreciated. The gesture is often more meaningful than even the raw amount. And Doge famously developed an extensive tipping culture in the community, even prior to the arrival.
Yeah, I totally agree with this, Murad. I think it's absolutely fair. I think within communities, there should be support for each other for doing the work. I'm literally currently wearing It's Crypto's, I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called it's not a cloak, is it? Anyway, Overthrow. This is amazing. He created this. I paid him for this in Ticker Bitcoin or Ethereum. I think it was Ticker Bitcoin, actually. I've paid Yuxi for his work as well, his artwork. I've paid Dumpstar for his artwork as well. And within the Ticker Bitcoin community, people are willing to pay for the hard work in which others commit to doing. And that is driven through the appreciation of one another. There's no narrative or fixed decision from the developer team or anyone who's been in the community longer. It's if you think that someone is doing a really good job and you like what they do, you will generally back that individual for the work and appreciation. I've also paid for the Ticker Bitcoin, again, which was also created by Yuxi, Ticker Bitcoin tarot cards, which I paid a lot of money for as well. And that's because the hard work that went into this is incredible. And no other community is producing products like this. This is a physical, tangible product that has a fixed supply that I'm keeping very close eyes on. I keep it in my office, and it sits on my shelf of collectibles over there. So I totally agree with Murad on that point, but Ticker Bitcoin does it best.
Of Elon Musk. I think the best examples of this in crypto history are Dogecoin and BTC. Factor 15. This is having external trends as tailwinds. A crypto asset possesses a great advantage, in my opinion, if there are a number of trends occurring outside of crypto that stand to be continuous tailwinds for that specific crypto asset. Very obvious and kind of surface level examples are monetary debasement consistently benefiting BTC or bank closures benefiting privacy coins. What are some of the best examples of this in history? I would say Bitcoin, gold, and GME. Factor number 16.
Yeah, external tailwinds, absolutely agree. Is BTC pumping? If so, generally we're going to be going in the right direction. Is BTC dumping over a long time frame, weekly, monthly? If yes, we're probably going to end up going to zero. Are we in QT? Are we in QE? Which I'm surprised Murad didn't mention. So is it quantitative tightening? Is it quantitative easing? We have been in quantitative tightening up until this point. And Jerome Powell discussed, I'm not American, but I'm just saying, Jerome Powell discussed that quantitative easing should be coming in. So you could argue that November, December, quantitative easing happens. If we are in a positive trajectory, that should affect Ethereum, which then should hopefully pump to 5.5, 6. That will then draw up any ETH memes sat on that floor. And then we need to see what rotation happens from bigger whales. And again, money filtering down, a possible retail jumping in off these insane gains. It could be literally a month and a half of absolute madness before we blow off the top and then set ourselves up for a steady year and a half of just chatting to each other in the Telegram.
This, some would argue, is less important than others, but for me personally, it's very important. This is essentially an asset being a resistance asset rather than a compliance asset. What is the difference? A compliance asset, when you're buying it, you're essentially strengthening the existing system, right? While a resistance asset, you're trying to build something new, create a new sort of value. You're essentially trying to route around the system and create new financial platforms, financial assets, monetary assets, etc. I think this is quite important because I frankly believe that in the long run, resistance assets are going to win. I think both God and the streets are on the side of resistance assets. And I believe that even me personally, it's just much more exciting to be a part of something new rather than being a part of something old. And finally, we come to factor 17, which I would pragmatically argue is...
I haven't really got much to comment on that one, if I'm entirely honest. I don't think it's much of a point. It's kind of just like buy something that's new and is different. And obviously, indirectly, Murad is talking about SPX 6900 because he's wearing it on his t-shirt. And Murad is an SPX 6900 bull. What's the word I'm looking for? I always forget these. Maxi, there we go. And I'm a Ticker Bitcoin Maxi, and that's absolutely fine. It's just that Murad has a greater reach than me. So what he says has more weight to it. I'm someone that has like 3,000 followers on Twitter that probably gets maybe 20, 30 likes on a post. So the weight of what I say generally will only reach my immediate circle, whereas Murad's reach is absolutely much bigger than mine. He has more weight behind what he says. He has way more experience within this space than I do. And that's the same of anyone who has a large following within the space, and obviously also experience within that space as well, in a fact that what Murad says will be taken more seriously than what I say, because I have a smaller following, but obviously he also has experience as well. But the underlying fundamental project, SPX 6900, Ticker Bitcoin, APU, Giga, whatever it is that you support, across the board, technically aren't too dissimilar. The dissimilarities come from the individual holders who put more effort into pushing that project. And again, if we're talking about the initial spark that started the fire, Dogecoin was the initial meme coin, Pepe came on the scene, Ticker Bitcoin came on the scene, and then we created this wave of utter carnage that left a wake of madness behind us.
The most important, or the second most important factor, and this is this coin outperforming BTC this cycle so far? Is this coin outperforming BTC this year so far, right? Because here's the thing, right? Why would you be buying an altcoin, let alone holding it for 3+ years, if it's not even being BTC, which is much safer, much more liquid, much more established? You're essentially wasting time. You want to be focusing on strong momentum. You want to be focusing on buying strength. You want to be providing additional strength to what is already strong. You want to focus on assets that have already been performing well in the years or months prior to right now. You want to focus on assets that have been beating BTC over the past couple of years. Otherwise, you're essentially, again, holding a riskier, smaller asset that's not even outperforming the safer giant.
I'm also going to say that this is probably his worst take as well. And the reason I disagree with Murad, which I'm totally allowed to do because we're just all humans on the internet and who really cares at the end of the day, is this totally contradicts what he said at the very start. And I think this presentation is a slight mixed message as to what he's trying to do. He obviously is drawing an audience into SPX 6900. That's the project that Murad knows, loves, supports. That's absolutely fine. Ticker Bitcoin is a project that I know, love, and support. And at the start, it was finding something that's new and fresh on the scene, creating the diamond-handed mindset. It was focusing less on the financial success of given project and more on the community focus. What can you provide to that community? What can you create to that community? Creating a DCA culture, supporting the project through its highs and lows, and creating this long-term narrative of we reach for the stars, and if we fall short, we're at the moon. Whereas here, it's saying only focus on those things that are doing really, really well, only focus on those things that have already done well, and only focus on the thing that has outperformed BTC, which indirectly he is talking about SPX 6900, which he has absolutely every right to do so. But all I'm saying is this page here is purely focused on that. It's not what to look out for in your 10x or 100x. It's this is why you should pick SPX 6900 because we've outperformed this BTC over the last 3 years, which is impressive, don't get me wrong. But again, you're talking about a project with a market cap that was much smaller and now has grown, and it has grown, and it's done a really, really good job of that. So as a holder, let's say I'm DCAing Ticker Bitcoin, I'm creating content for the community, I'm reinvesting and tipping community members for the hard work that they are putting back to me. I'm diamond-handed, I'm long-term focused, I'm bought into the branding, I'm bought into the project, I'm a maxi, I understand my risks, I've taken them on, I'm looking at what the market is doing. Oh, but it hasn't outperformed BTC. So in fact, Dave, you should leave Ticker Bitcoin and go and join a project that's actually performed really well right now. You could argue on the flip to that, and again, I'm not a financial person, you could argue the flip to that is what projects hold the same fundamental values as some projects that have already pumped, but have a greater chance to increase their gains over time. So you're talking about a 10x, 100x, 1000x. What is theoretically more likely to move easier? A project that has a $1.5, $2 billion market cap, or a project that has 100 million market cap? The amount of input that needs to happen from an investment perspective to take something from 100 to a billion is far easier than to take something from a billion to 2 billion to 10 billion. So you could argue that looking at projects that match, if not improve on a project that has a higher market cap and has already seen a recent pump, work back from what that did well, look at what is currently out there, look at what the holders are doing, look at how well it performed against the recent pullback that we had, what recovered really well, what's our liquidity looking like, what are the community members producing, what's the narrative, what's the mindset, what's the energy levels, and then how much more do we have to go? And again, this is going back to a retail perspective. We're expecting new people to come in. What is feasibly more attractive? A project that is worth $2, just looking at the number, or a project that is worth 10 cents? Arguably, from a psychological perspective, putting $1,000 in something that's worth 10 cents and having those amount of tokens, which would be what, 100,000 tokens would it be? No, 10,000 tokens? I don't know. Someone do the maths for me. I'm not very good at that. Or something that gives you 500 tokens. You're probably going to look at the one that gives you more tokens because psychologically you know that you own more. And if I get this to 50 cents to $1, I'm going to make this much money. Whereas if I go from $1 to $3, which theoretically is still a huge jump because you're taking a market cap of 1.5 to let's say 4 billion, it's not as much tangible growth for that individual. So I'd argue that a project that has strong foundational narratives, but has yet to pump, but has the fundamentals to do so, is more attractive to the market and a retail coming in than something that has already done the latter.
And you're what are you doing? You're effectively praying for an old school alt season or a round of 2020.
Also, again, just to play devil's advocate, you're praying for something to do really well, and yet at some point you were painting the narrative that SPX 6900 was a PBA token, which is a pure belief asset. I don't really know what that is, Murad, but I would, from the way I took that in as an external person, is the only way that we get out of this, guys, is if we just believe that we go up. So again, are we looking for people to adopt a project that is strong fundamentally and has seen ups and downs and yet stuck out to be pretty consistent over time? And believing in that and DCAing and being downhanded and being a PBA? Or are we looking for something that's just done really, really well recently and has actually a bigger market cap? I don't really know at this point.
21 style central bank stimulus to bail you out. This is not a good strategy. You have to buy what is already strong with or without you. More on this later. So putting this all together, right? We have a list of factors that can help create a parabolic growth. Once again, let's look at all of them. You want to be focused on cult-like communities. You want to be focused on coins new to this cycle. You want to be focused on coins that represent a new category. You want to be focused on category leaders. You want to be focused on crypto assets that are difficult to value. You want to be focused on things that make retail rich or is in the process of already making retail people richer. They become your loyal supporters. You want to focus on coins that have the potential of going viral on social media, that lend themselves to massive amounts of social media material. You want to focus on coins that still have not experienced global-wide parabolic growth yet. You want to focus on large markets. You want to focus on narratives that will appeal to retail at the emotional level. You want to focus on coins and communities that have very, very ambitious, borderline delusional targets. You want to focus on coins that have some level of supply constriction. You want to focus on coins with a DCA culture, with a tipping culture. You want to focus coins that will have continuous, multi-month, better yet, multi-year tailwinds. You want to focus on coins that are a part of the resistance assets. And last but not least, you want to focus coins that already, right now, have very strong momentum. So what is our goal here? Our goal here is to find altcoins that satisfy as many of these factors as possible to maximize our probability of winning in the coming months and years. We come back to the last factor, right? Because this is, I think, is the second or the first most important factor, and this is where you're going to be sourcing your investment candidates from. I think this is the smart play. Again, buy what's already strong. So before we delve into the assets that are outperforming this year and this cycle in general so far, I would like to remember a tweet that I tweeted earlier this year, January 25th of this year. That's almost 10 months ago. So I said, there will not be an alt season, right? I said, not in 2025. This industry has changed, in my opinion, permanently. The rate of new coins produced per day will continue to increase. This train only runs in one direction. And so two things will happen. On one side, you're going to continue to have extreme hyper gambling. Frankly, I think it's a futile game. And on the other, you're going to have a...
Just in the interest of time, I'm going to end this now because that's taken quite some time. So yeah, thanks, folks. Thanks for... How do I close this? Let me remove that. Thanks for listening. I appreciate your time. This has been 58 minutes of Fathead Dave talking about Murad. I hope you enjoyed, and a very good night from me in the UK. You know what? On the live stream, let's flip and do it. Day 480. You know what? I'm going to film myself saying it just for the content. Here we go. Murad, you know what? I love this. Hey, squad. Just finished a live stream of 58 minutes with apparently 210 views until. On what is day 480 of saying Harry Potter, I'm almost going to tell you until we hit $1. The ticker is Bitcoin. Good night. Hey squad, just finished a live stream of 58 minutes with apparently 210 views until.